Hi, and welcome back to Football Made Simple.
The Bundesliga is back, and Bayern Munich kicked it off with a 6-1 win that shows they mean business this season. Courtesy of goals by new signing Mane, Gnabry, a double by Musiala, Kimmich, and Benjamin Pavard. The XG indicated it was a deserved win as well, 4.56 to 0.76. And Nagelman continues to be one of the more tactically fascinating managers around. So what tactics did he use to get this big win? In this video we'll take a look. And here's how both sides lined up courtesy of the One Football app, with Eintracht Frankfurt using a 3-4-2-1, whilst Bayern Munich on paper had a 4-4-2 with Mane and Gnabry leading the line. You can get formations like this, score updates, news, transfer updates and so much more for free through the One Football app, which is linked in the description below. It is the best free football app around and I couldn't recommend it highly enough. But let's start with what Bayern did when in possession. Bayern would often build up with a back three. This could be by splitting the centre backs, with Neuer becoming the third man, allowing both Davies and Pavard to advance higher. Alternatively, Pavard is the more defensive of the two fullbacks, so if Neuer was deeper, the back three would instead see Pavard moving to right centre back, whilst Davies would remain higher in general than Pavard. Either way, the goal of having a three-man backline was to draw the Eintracht front three much higher up the pitch. So in this situation, Bayern still have a back three. However, instead of having Pavard drop deep, it's Neuer who's the third man. So as a result, we can see that the Eintracht front three are more drawn towards the Bayern back three. Here we have the alternative back three, with Upamecano being joined by Pavard, who is the right centre back. Having the third centre back still has the same effect of drawing another Eintracht man higher into the press. And generally, the Bayern shape higher up the pitch was a 4-2-2-2. And importantly, these front four were highly interchangeable, so at any moment, any of them could be in any of these four positions. And one thing to note is that Davies' higher positioning off the left-hand side would draw the fullback higher up the pitch in general than we would see with Kostic on the left-hand side. So this is how Nagelsmann was able to time and again cut open Frankfurt. With the front three having been drawn higher up the pitch, Sabitzer and Kimmich were the double pivots in these positions, and Eintracht looked to carry on the press, with Sau and Rode looking to move higher up the pitch. By moving both Müller and Musiala inside the pitch, they would have so many numbers in the central region, so they could find space between the lines behind these pressing pivots, whilst the pace of Mane and Gnabry, or Musiala if he was higher up the pitch, meant that the centre-backs couldn't push too high up the pitch. And here we have the general Bayern shape that caused Eintracht so many problems. A fairly traditional back four and a fairly traditional double pivot. But the difference now is that the wingers, instead of staying wide, have tucked infield more, so the midfield region does look more like a midfield box. At the same time, here we see the general Eintracht pressing shape. They were looking to prevent play down the centre. However, the front three could join the press, and Rode and his midfield partner were quick to look to press the Bayern pivots. So the front five often found themselves in these situations, but this would be problematic as it meant that Musiala and Müller could be behind the Eintracht pivots. And this is where the quality of individual players is so important. Upamecano, Hernandez or Kimmich when he dropped deeper to pick up the ball are all excellent at providing penetrative passes. That means that in these pressing situations, they had the vision and ability to find men between the lines. And as a result, when this pass was found, 5 of the Eintracht men were immediately taken out of the game, allowing Bayern to run directly at the back three often. This would cause numerous problems, as there could also be a dropping centre forward who would then lay off a pass, and in general, they could combine in these central areas and look to find through balls to other men to get into goal scoring positions, and they had a lot of success in this manner. As Bayern were having so much success between the lines, we could at times see one of the Eintracht centre-backs look to back up the press so that they couldn't receive. However, these players are so technically good, they would be able to lay it off to their teammates, and now there would be a massive gap in the defensive line that could be taken advantage of, as we see in some of the goals. So here's a perfect example of where this goes wrong for Eintracht. They have the same front five shape, looking to cover the Bayern pivots, but their positioning means that Musiala is behind the Eintracht pivots, so he can be found by a penetrative pass from deep. He's able to receive behind the Eintracht pivots, and in this situation, he turns and runs straight at the defense. Again, a similar situation, the Eintracht front five are pressing higher and much narrower, meaning that this time Müller and Gnabry are in behind the pivots. In this situation, it's Kimmich that drops deeper to use his passing ability to find a penetrative pass into Mane, who has now dropped deeper to get on the ball. And his presence means that the Eintracht centre-back is now drawn out of position as he's looking to cover this. So this could potentially have opened up room for Musiala to make a run behind him. A slightly different option that Bayern had at times was switching to a lopsided midfield three. So if Sabitzer and Kimmich were off axis to one side or the other, we could see Müller or often Musiala drop into this third midfield position, and they would be free as the front three was on the back three, the pivots were on the pivots, so a penetrative, well-timed pass would find a man in space here who could then turn and look to attack the back line. Again, Bayern have the back three with Pavard joining them, and you can see that Alphonso Davies tends to be higher than Pavard. In some situations, this would draw out Knauf, who would look to press him, and you can see Gnabry is looking to make the run in behind him in case this does happen. This doesn't happen in this situation, but what's interesting is the positioning of Müller, as this was a common occurrence for Bayern Munich. This would allow them to still keep two pivots deeper to draw the Eintracht men, but then have a free man outside the pivots to potentially receive in the midfield region. This is something we can see even more clearly in these situations. The Bayern pivots have drawn the Eintracht pivots, and this time it is Musiala who is outside these men. So in some situations a penetrative pass would have been able to find him, although this doesn't happen here. So by having Davies higher up the pitch, it could draw the wing back higher, and as a result Musiala or Gnabry would be able to make a run into the created space. This is the build up to Bayern's fourth goal, with Eintracht again pressing with three men, although in this case it's Kostic out wide. Davies, as the more aggressive fullback, pushes higher up the pitch, but then he is now able to find Kimmich, who's free as the midfield has shifted across to cover Davies. As always, Bayern have plenty of men between the lines. So, as we have previously seen, a man between the lines can at times draw the centre-back out of position, leaving this large gap in behind them. This time Mane is able to take advantage of it, as he can find Müller with the pass. The same Bayern front four are now running at a back two as the centre-back is out of position, meaning that when Müller receives this pass, he's then able to find Musiala, who can run onto the pass. By this point, Bayern are well ahead, and have made plenty of changes, but the principle is still the same, with a double pivot deep and two men in advance of them. Again, Kimmich, an excellent passer, is able to find Musiala, who is the wrong side of the Eintracht pivots, and he is able to then turn and run at the defense. He finds Mane, whose movement has again drawn a centre-back out of position. Mane will lay back to Sane, and Sane plays an excellent ball back in for Musiala to get on the end of, and he is then able to finish. But Bayern also had an interesting shape when pressing, so let's take a look at their defensive setup. Bayern would set up almost with a forward diamond when defending, and this shape could be from an Eintracht goal kick or in open play. But the general idea was that with this shape, once the ball became active, if Eintracht were playing short, they would go to one side or the other, at which point the centre forward, and again these four were highly flexible, would then look to apply pressure whilst cutting off the inside pass. At the same time, the only pass would be out wide, where one of the wider diamond men could then follow. The far side forward and the man in behind could then look to cover the pivots who were looking to provide support, and as a result there were highly limited options, and they would often be forced into a riskier pass to a man under pressure or to go long. This was generally the Bayern pressing shape, both from goal kicks and open play, with what looked like a forward diamond, or just a front four. So if Eintracht wanted to play short, Mane would then be able to press one man or the other, forcing all of Eintracht's play either down the left or the right, allowing the three behind him to respond. In this situation, the ball goes down Eintracht's right, and Mane stays covering the centre-back. Musiala can now press the makeshift full-back. But the crucial part of this press is that Gnabry, who is in behind, can cover one pivot, and the far side forward, who would now be in a less useful position if he stayed out here, can then move in narrow onto the second pivot. As a result, there's nowhere for Frankfurt to really go, forcing a long ball. And one thing to note for Bayern is that due to their shape, they were lethal in the transition. When Eintracht had the ball and they had pushed men higher up, if there was a turnover, it meant that they always had a man between the lines who could receive either side of the pivots and then look to progress higher up the pitch, with these runners looking to make moves in beyond the defenders. Alternatively, Bayern could even go much more direct due to the pace of the likes of Mane, Gnabry and Musiala, so they could be making straight runs in behind the defence to be found. Due to the presence of their front four, Bayern were excellent on the transition. So in this situation, Bayern have just won the ball back, but they already have a man the wrong side of the pivots who they can look to play the first time pass to. He had then drawn a centre back, meaning it's now a 3 versus 2 against the 2 remaining centre backs, although it doesn't lead to a goal. This is another situation where having 4 men so high and usually so central is crucial in the transition. The ball breaks loose here, and Kimmich is able to pick up the loose ball. Due to their positioning, both Mane and Gnabry can make the first time run in behind that Kimmich is able to pick out. This eventually leads to the goal, as Gnabry is able to pick up Mane for the headed finish.
I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, you might enjoy the content available on my Patreon. Not only does Patreon help to support the continued production of content, as I am a one-man team, but it also gives you early access to videos that will come on the channel. You'll also get exclusive videos, get to vote on polls, and so much more. And it's cheaper than ever, no longer having a tier system, so everyone on the Patreon gets access to all the content. So head over to patreon.com/footballmadesimple to check it out.
And a special thanks to my latest patrons, including Dimitros, Chrysophides, Liam White, G&D, Some Random Guy 7, Brian Liddell, and Kevin Gonzalez.
But that's all for today, and remember, keep it simple.